So thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, members, everyone. My name is Lucy Kagendo Mbai. I'm the Global Greens Climate Working Group co-convener. I'm the member of Global Greens Women Group Steering Committee, member of Green Congress of Kenya, and also the Secretary for Women Affairs at Green Congress of Kenya, and also working as a program manager at Green Dimensions Network. I'm going to be moderating this, and we are on this webinar. We're having our panelists who will be sharing their expectations on different thematic areas. So Global Greens Climate Working Group has been running a series of events in preparation for COP28. It is 8 days before COP28 starts, in person and online in Dubai. And in preparations to this, Global Greens will send delegates from different parts of the world who will be representing us in person in Dubai. What is COP? The COP is a supreme decision-making body of convention. All states that are parties to the convention are represented at the COP, at which they review the implementations of the convention and any other legal instruments that the COP adopts and takes decisions necessary to promote the effective implementation of the convention, including institutional and administrative arrangements. On the chat, I'm going to just share where you can learn more about what COP is all about. In the 3 decades since the Rio Summit, the launch of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, that is the UNFCCC, the Conference of Parties of Convention has convened member countries every year to determine ambitions and responsibilities, identify and assess climate measures, and the 21st section of COP, that is COP21, that led to the Paris Agreement, which mobilized the global collective action to limit the global temperatures increase to 1.5 degrees above the pre-industrial levels by the 21st century. And to act to adopt the already existing effects of climate change, during this climate COP28, it's going to be focusing on thematic areas. And these will have on the 1st and 2nd, we are going to have the World Climate Action Summit. And then on the 3rd, we'll be looking at the health, relief, recovery, and peace. On the 4th, we'll be looking at the finance, trade, gender equality, accountability. On the 5th, we'll have energy, industry, just transition, and the indigenous people. On the 6th, we'll have multi-level action, urbanizations and built environment and transport. Then on the 7th will be a rest day. On the 8th, we'll have the youth, children education and skills. And on the 9th, we'll have nature, land use and oceans. On the 10th, we'll have food, agriculture and water. And on the last 2 days will be the final negotiations. And all these themes, the thematic areas will all be cross-cutting along the technology and innovation, inclusion. Then we also need to do the frontline communities and finance. That is all those will be cutting across all the themes during the 2 weeks that COP will be going place. So I'll be a delegate on the first week, and I'm going to be focusing on the summit and also on the 2nd day. So on the 1st and 2nd day, December, we shall have the World Climate Action Summit taking place. This will be attended by high-level heads of states and the head of states from different parties. We are expecting the leaders to deliver national statements that are transparent. We need to see action plans, especially on water systems, involvement of the youth, children, education skills that are working. We also want to see a robust mitigation, adaptation, and finance strategy. And I also feel it's time that leaders come with a concrete actions plan. In Kenya, where I come from, we are just past COVID. effects, and it's not like it's over. And we are now actually experiencing the El Nino. We have in France, which actually I've seen also in Dubai. Those will be going. We have been having a lot of rains. So these are all effects of climate change, just to mention a few. We need an urgent collective climate action plan that is implemented and not just stories by all parties. If we do not take care of Mother Nature, it will actually treat us very differently. And that's why we need to have all parties have an inclusive discussion about this and have a conclusion. On the 3rd of December, the thematic area will be on the health, relief, recovery, and peace, like I said. And if you've been able to see the latest IPCC report, which highlights that climate change is a grave threat to human well-being and to the health, inclusivity action to address the health benefits of climate actions, including reducing emissions and transforming health systems, can yield immense health benefits. And so these needs to be looked at during COP. And at COP, we need to see the willingness, galvanize public and private sector momentum for climate and health. Also at COP, the Declaration on Climate and Health, mobilizing political support around shared priorities on climate change. Health nexus need to be also on top of the agenda. Also at COP, we should deliver, or we expect the leaders deliver, climate health financing initiatives that will unlock billions to safeguard and invest in health in a changing climate. And I believe this should lay the foundation for strengthening the health response to climate change, including and at future COPs in the World Health Assembly. It is very sad that we are also in a very fragile and conflict time in the world with countries like Ukraine, Russia war. We have the Palestine and Israel, instability in many other parts like also Sudan, Congo, just to mention a few. And I think this needs to be on the table of all parties. How do we overcome these? Because these are also contributing to the climate effects that we are all experiencing. In conclusion, I would like to say it is time that the parties focus on accelerating adaptation, preventing, and also addressing the loss and damage. So I want to take, thank you so much for that. I want to take this floor. We'll be taking the next, we have the next presenter who is going to be Emilia. Emilia, kindly. Alison, you there? Yes, thank you. So we are going to have the presentation for Emilia, which is going to be a video. And kindly after this, we'll take you can do your questions on the Q&A and we'll answer them after all the presentations. Welcome. Alison, next.
I don't have any sound on her.
Hi, I'm Amelia Womack, former Deputy Leader of the Green Party of England and Wales, and will be one of the delegates from the European Green Party. So I have attended COP26, COP27, and COP28, will be attending COP28, and covering finance and gender, which is an interesting combination, but actually an important combination. I think that one thing I'm concerned about is that gender gets deprioritized because finance is such a hot topic at the moment. What we're seeing across the world at the moment is that those who did the least to cause the climate emergency are experiencing the worst of its effects. The reason that finance is such a big issue at this year's COP is because at last year's COP, a commitment to loss and damage funding was created. At the moment, world leaders are trying to negotiate what that looks like, and they are failing. A loss and damage fund would essentially support those countries that are experiencing climate change right now, and those countries who have done the most to cause it should be funding their ability to adapt and become more resilient in the face of climate change. There's much skepticism about what this means. Already, those countries are failing to put forward billions of pounds that are meant to be supporting those very countries in a climate adaptation fund. And we're also seeing those countries invest still in the climate emergency. Just look at the UK. The UK government just this month has committed to further oil extraction in the North Sea. We're seeing funding going to coal, oil and fossil fuel projects around the world, financed by Europe and financed by those who have done the most to cause climate emergency. There's a real gap in these negotiations. And when talking about finance, one of my biggest concerns is this COP will have oil lobbyists, just as we did at Egypt, will have oil lobbyists at its heart. It's frustrating to not learn from the failures of Egypt. At the event in Sharm el-Sheikh, I spoke to a number of different communities, people whose homes are being harmed by oil extraction, funded by big companies from around the world, but also funded by EU contracts that have come into their countries. Specifically, there has been a dash for gas to Africa as a result of the illegal occupation of Ukraine by Russia. This has meant that we're seeing new oil and gas pipelines being committed to, and these will essentially become stranded assets for those countries that have already experienced those failures of an investment that simply isn't long-term for their countries. And just to touch on gender, so when we look at these negotiations, time after time after time, women are underrepresented, and people of underrepresented genders, non-binary people, trans people are essentially not part of this conversation. When we get further into diversity and understanding how women are being harmed, how people of diverse genders are being harmed, there is a lack of acknowledgement of the intersectionalities that there may be for people of colour, for people on lower incomes, for LGBTIQA plus people, for women really specifically who are less abled than others. And so this is going to be an important discussion of what the climate emergency does mean for women and other underrepresented genders, because it is those people who will be at the forefront of the climate emergency. We know it is during times of emergency, it's women who bear the brunt. And the fact that they are the least represented at the negotiating table is a complete failure of these conversations, of these negotiations, and of how we ensure that we are investing in those communities that do, and those people who are going to create adaptation and resilience for this generation and for generations to come. I'm looking forward to speaking about this more at Dubai, and I wish I could join you today, but it's unfortunately not possible with my work schedule. Best of luck, everyone.
Thank you so much, Alison, for sharing that. And thank you so much also to Emilia. So like I said, if you have any questions, kindly put them on the Q&A, then we'll answer them at the end. So next, we are going to have Jacqueline, who is going to be talking about the energy industry just transition and also on indigenous people. Welcome, the floor is yours.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Alison and Lucy. My name is Jacqueline Chepchirchir. I am a social impact coordinator, advocacy, governance, and community partnerships at Kituo cha Sheria Legal Advice Center in Nairobi, Kenya. I am a member of Green Congress of Kenya and also a volunteer like Lucy at the Green Dimensions Network in Nairobi. I am going to talk about energy industry, just transition, and the indigenous people. As the delegate from Green Congress of Kenya, I would like to address the importance of a just transition in the energy while considering the rights and well-beings of the indigenous people. The transition towards a sustainable energy is vital to combat climate crisis and achieve the goals set out in the Paris Agreement. However, it is equally important to ensure that this transition is fair, equitable, especially for the indigenous communities who have historically been disproportionately affected by the extractive industries and environmental degradation. Firstly, it is crucial to engage indigenous communities and incorporate their knowledge, perspective, and consent in the decision-making process regarding energy projects that may impact their lands and livelihood. Informed consent and meaningful participation are essential for ensuring that the transition respects, preserves the right of the indigenous rights, cultures, tradition, and practices. Secondly, investment in renewable energy should prioritize and benefit indigenous communities, especially those living in remote areas with limited access to electricity. By empowering these communities to participate in benefit from the renewable energy sector, we can unlock economic opportunities, just as stated by Emilia, and improve living conditions that bridge the energy access gap. Thirdly, a just transition requires that no indigenous community is left behind or disproportionately affected by phasing out of fossil fuels industries. It is essential to provide alternative livelihood options, skills training, job creation for the indigenous communities. These can help them participate fully in the green economy while preserving their cultural heritage and connection to the land. Lastly, international cooperations and financial supports are crucial in catalyzing a just transition for the indigenous communities. Developed nations and international institutions should provide adequate financial resources, and this should be a priority during this COP28, and technical assistance to support the capacity building efforts of indigenous communities in transitioning to sustainable and inclusive energy systems. Just the other day, the COP28 presidency, the International Renewable Energy Agency, IRENA, and the Global Renewable Alliance launched a joint report ahead of COP28. The report provides actionable policy recommendations for governments and the private sector on how to increase global renewable energy capacity to at least 11,000 gigawatts while doubling annual energy efficiency improvements in the target period. This falls under the COP28 presidency's action agenda objectives for fast-tracking a just, orderly energy transition to keep 1.5 degrees within reach. It is imperative that we prioritize the implementation of environmental and social safeguards, safeguarding the rights and livelihood of indigenous people. Any transition, strategy, or project must commit to free, prior, and informed consent, ensuring that these communities that we work with and live with have a final say over any action that will be taken in their lands and lives during this COP28. As I conclude, a successful and sustainable transition in the energy industry must be accompanied by a just transition that respects and benefits indigenous people. By embracing their knowledge, empowering their communities, and providing support. This, if we do, we can create a more equitable and sustainable future for all the communities that we are working with, especially in the African region that are less privileged. Thank you for this opportunity that you've given me. And I wait to answer your questions on the same about this issue of just transition, energy, and the indigenous communities. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jackie, for that informative session. And like I said, we'll be taking questions. Keep kindly posting them on the Q&A, and we'll answer them after all our delegates have been able to do the presentation. So our next delegate will be Ellen, who will be talking about multi-level action, urbanization, built environment, and transport. The floor is yours, Ellen, please. Ellen, unmute yourself. Okay. Before Ellen comes back, I think I can go to the next one, then she can come after. So Sigida is going to be taking us in week 2, which is going to be about the youth, children, education, and skills. So the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Lucy. I just want to first check, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Just go ahead, please. Then
Namaste,
Ellen will come
everyone.
after.
Great. Namaste, everyone. Greetings to all of you present here. I'm Snigdha Tiwari. I'm the co-convener of Climate Working Group. I have been working with, can you hear me? I think somebody is saying something.
Just continue. We can hear you.
Yeah. So I have been working with Greens at the local, national, and transnational level for more than 7 years now. And it's been a great journey to work and to constantly fight, particularly as a young person. I come from Uttarakhand. Uttarakhand is a state in India, which is a Himalayan state. And coming from a Himalayan state, I have seen the vulnerability of the Himalayas, and we being the netizens of a Himalayan state, I would say, we have seen how badly the development policy of the state as well as the climate crisis have impacted the higher Himalayas. And particularly when as one of the cases which I was doing on Joshimath, which is a town in higher Himalayas in Chamoli district, wherein 204 people lost their life on 7th of February to 2021. And only this year, on January, 700 families were displaced because there is a constant land subsidence happening. Not just because of the developmental policy, but also because of the impact of the climate change, which is happening so fast in the Himalayas that the climate change suddenly now has become a climate crisis for all of us. Just now, when that was happening, adjacent to that town, 10 days ago, 41 workers or workers in this a construction company, like a big corporation which are pushing for their development policies in Uttarakhand, 41 persons are still stuck inside a dark tunnel wherein they have, and still today they have not been out of that tunnel. And they're still struggling to come out. They're struggling for their life. And all agency, not just from India, from across the world, has been brought in India in the next adjoining district just to help those 41 persons who are stuck inside the tunnel. And these are just the 2 examples that I gave to you to show the brunt of climate crisis, particularly to the countries in the global south. The countries in the global south are very vulnerable, and as Emilia has even spoken about climate financing, we know what is the reality of that. What I want to say here is that this climate change is not just an environmental crisis for us. It is a human rights crisis. And it is the human rights crisis which is impacting which are most vulnerable, like young people, like children, like minorities, whether it is a gender minority or religious minority, which does not get a chance to present themselves before the leaders to be part of the negotiations which are happening at the local level, whether they are happening at the national level or at the level of the UNFCCC or at the level of COP. What we are seeing is that youth better than children, are just being used as for the sake of tokenism. There is no true representation of youth. We are just present there it's about we are the ones who contributed least towards the climate crisis, and we are the ones who are facing the brunt of it the most. We have in front of us the IPCC report, which is showing a glaring picture of what is happening to this whole world. And what about the education? What about when 700 families are shifted from one place to another? What about the education of a child? What about the education of the girl child? What about the employment for the youth? Where are the talks on that? Rehabilitation just by the name of food and shelter and all those basic necessities are not enough. And when all of this is not enough, when we are facing what we are facing, because all these leaders totally failed, particularly of the global north, totally failed to take care of what is like of all these impacts that which we are facing right now, then it is the time when youth should be there, not just at the negotiation table, but should be there as leaders. It is so unfortunate that for the first time in COP26, a youth day was recognized. So much late, very recent, just COP26. I was there for COP26. I was also there for COP27. And I'm thankful that I'm also in the delegation of COP28. What we are seeing, not just in India, not just in Africa, not even in America, even in Europe, the impact the impact this climate crisis is having in the employment, in the education, on the health of youth is terrible. And unfortunately, nothing is being done on that regard. This year in August, United Nations endorsed a guidance which is known as General Comment 26. And on that guidance note, what they are saying is that youth and children, it's a very big paper, very nicely done paper. It is on the Convention of Rights of Children. And because it's on the convention, the general comment and this whole guidance has this authoritative guidance. So this authoritative guidance is like because it is an authoritative guidance, 196 nations of this whole world, they have to follow it. And what they are saying about the children and youth, I don't have that much time to go in depth into that, but what they are saying is very glaring. They are saying, they are showing how it is impacting, and they are showing how the state is responsible to ensure as basic right as right to life for children because of the climate crisis which they are facing. Then my question is, why are we not drafting? Why youth, children are not present at the places where they can draft their own environmental policies, their own environmental laws? There are no such forums for that. We need to stop the tokenization of representation of youth at the level of UNFCCC. There should be, we expect to see better representation this time. And further, we expect that this time there must be an effort or some action that UNF at the UNFCCC level, that they institutionalize that youth are more present in the party delegation. Youth have voice inside court just by being the observers, and then pushing, going behind ministers, going behind delegations. It's not enough. I remember the last COP where, as I observed from the COP, people may have different opinion. Youth played a very important role in bringing loss and damage on the draft. It was the youth which were constantly, different youth delegations were with different meeting different delegation of the parties, meeting the ministers and pushing them that please include loss and damages on the draft. And when they did not hear our pleases, we started marching inside the COP. We started towards the end of week 2, it was the youth, we started literally haggling different delegations and groups that loss and damages is not being included in the draft, and we saw the result. So that is all that I have to say. Most important thing which I want to end this talk with, and I'm very happy to take more questions from all of you, that climate justice is necessary. And we always say that climate justice cannot be possible without social justice for all of us. So on that note, I would like to end, and I'm very happy to take any questions if there are. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sigida, for that. And like I said, we are just hoping that as we go to COP28, the leaders will keep not just giving us stories. We need to see the inclusion of everyone in this decision making. So next on panelist is Ellen. Kindly, the floor is yours, Ellen. We'll still be taking questions. Kindly just them.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me well?
Yes, please. Yes.
Okay.
Just go.
First of all, I'm sorry I wasn't able a few minutes ago, and thanks for your patience. So I'm happy to participate today. I am Hélène Lagoutte, and I'm French. I'm speaking here from Bordeaux, which is a city very well known for its wine. So that's where I live and that's where I work. I'm a member of the French French Green Party. And in Bordeaux, my job is I am a councillor, a green councillor for the president of the metropolitan area, and I'm working on the subjects of energy and climate. I was in COP27, and I will be very pleased to be in COP28 as a delegate for the Global Greens. My subject there, the subject I will follow is urbanization. So it will be 6th of December, as Lucy said before. So I am I'm not really an expert into urbanization, but I am very interested in that subject. And I've been cooperating with the Green Party in France on urban planning. So that's a subject that I quite follow very often. Why urbanization in COP28? I think it's a major subject for climate change and also for climate justice. Why? Because a very simple thing. Population's growing a lot, and billions of people live in cities, and billions of more people will live in cities soon. I think cities are kind of the future, and also it's the most effective form for living in terms of environmental impact. So that's very interesting. My concern is to understand better how to develop urban solutions that are based on nature, and also to ensure that the climate justice and equality will be taken into account into the cities. We have, of course, one example that we know very well, which is NEOM, this new city in the middle of Saudi Arabia, which is fully based on 100% green tech. And for me, it's a very interesting example because there's no consideration for social aspects of this city. This city was designed and built by technical operators and urbanist specialists and architects and governments. It has no consideration for the people who are going to live there. Who's going to live there? What's their level of freedom? How is it? How do we make sure that everybody has the same right for the same goods? This is not being thought at all. So for me, understanding how the cities will be built and run tomorrow is a major question. I think we must focus there during COP on the public goods in the cities, make sure that all people in the cities have a right access to water, to power, to education, and to mobility. I think it's a great challenge. So that's what I will take care of, and I will pledge for during COP28. This will be my special day and special work on urbanization, but also during COP28, I have a mission for the French Green Party is to publish a thread of the COP28 news every day. So I will do it for the French Green Party in French, and I will also propose an English version to the Global Greens to be shared with all our stakeholders and our network if they're happy to. So that's what I will do, and I'm also available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ellen, for that informative session. So like I said, keep doing your questions on the Q&A. We'll answer what, and then after also the delegates will also be able to answer the questions. So next on stage, we are going to have Aspen, who is going to be talking on nature, land use, and oceans. The floor is yours.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I don't see the seat on the screen. I am supposed to share it myself. There, okay.
No, we are sharing for you. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kjersti Aspeim. I'm from Greens Norway. I'm responsible for Saturday, 9th December, when nature, land use, and ocean is on the floor. Please, next slide. A little about myself. I'm owner and leader of Eco-Equality AS. It's a non-for-profit company with a focus on Oslo Fjord, started in 2020. I have been a local leader in Østensjø Green Party 17 and 18, Women's Network in Norway 17 to 19. I was a delegate for Norway on EGP Congress 17, and I'm a climate activist. Please, next. Nature-based solution is our goal, and nature our solution. For a long time, people have been technology optimists. Now the planet has reached the point where we have to admit that we have no other choice than nature-based solution, because no inventions surpasses nature in capturing and storing CO2. Nature is supreme. We just have to facilitate it rather than destroy. Next, please. We need land use greenhouse gas emission to go from plus to minus. Urban areas can be transformed to zero emission. Agriculture can be improved. Minus areas can be constructed. Green must demand. Minus CO2 areas in nature. Urban areas need a real greening. Emission due to agriculture must go down. Wildlife areas must get bigger. A question, does your country have plans for minus CO2 areas? Next, please. The ocean. We want a living sea. The truth is that the situation is critical. Pollution from many sources, plastics, chemicals, oil spills, sounds, lights, temperature differences, all are challenges for the ecosystems. The same ecosystems that can absorb more CO2 if they are allowed to flourish. Limiting overfishing is in reality about limiting crime. Countries have to set sensible low quotas and let criminal fishing get consequences. A thriving ecosystem produces food. Next, please. Thank you for listening. Kjersti Aspeim, that's me. Thank you, Alison, for helping.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Aspeim, for that presentation. So our next presenter will be Carla, and we'll have the recording. Volume.
Hi, I'm Carla Piranda, founder of Brazilian Green Party, where I am General Secretary. I am also co-convener together with Robina from Global Greens Women's Network, and we are very happy with this 100 female delegation from Global Greens for COP28. I have been participating in debates about the climate crisis for a few years. I'm a climate leader formed by Climate Reality and participated on COP20, 21, 25, 26, 27. Now I have the pleasure of being a Global Green Delegate again for COP28, in which I intend to observe and contribute to the debates of food, agriculture, and water. The concern arises from the fact that agriculture and livestock productions, therefore food productions, demands a large amount of water and energy. In many cases, it's responsible for soil degradation and greenhouse gas emissions, especially methane. This is obvious that the solution involves efficient and sustainable management of water resources. To achieve this, it's important to implement water conservation practices, such as efficient irrigation systems and rainwater collection and storage. Use of technological and innovative systems and priority in investments in research and development are necessary. Small farmers in developing countries produce a third of the world's food, but receive just 1.7% of climate finance, even as they deal with droughts, floods, cyclones, and other disasters. Adapting agriculture and food systems to the context of climate change is vital. We need to help Euro populations increase their resilience to these extreme weather events and adapt to climate change. 13 years ago at COP15 Copenhagen, developed nations made a significant promise. They have pledged to reserve 100 billion a year to less wealthy countries to help them adapt to climate change and mitigate further temperature rises. This promise, however, was not fulfilled. So it's urgent to change the logic of food production, consumption, and distribution, increasingly encouraging family and agroecological farming. Food security encompasses of all of these, in addition to respect for the eating practices of each people, taking into account respect for cultural, environmental, economical, and social diversity, and in a sustainable way. It would be great if everyone benefited from this product system, but healthy eating is still privileged based on race and social classes. We Greens are working hard to change it. See you soon.
Thank you so much, Alison, for that. And also, now our last presenter is going to be Shreen, and she'll be tackling the negotiations. Welcome. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Lucy. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And thank you also for the opportunity for making me join the first COP. So this will be the first experience that I will have at the COP level. I am Shireen Jordi, and I represent Green Party of Lebanon. I've joined in the past 2 years. I come up from a background that works on the Women, Peace and Security agenda. So I come up with a background that is inclusive in the way that we look at peace and security. And that is how I see the climate security and the climate justice and other things. You have seen throughout this webinar, my colleagues discussing the different thematics that will be discussed at COP. And here I would like to say that we are here at the road to COP and the road to negotiation. We have lots of things to talk about in terms of the climate justice, the social justice, and how we're able also to do the narratives, how we're able to change the narratives. Is it that we just want to talk about the global stocktake, the loss and damage, the fossil fuel, the climate finance, adaptation, mitigation, resilience? But we need to contextualize these if we want really to have a good implementation and a good negotiation. And this is what I want to say. We in the region, I come from Lebanon, and our region now is boiling with all these wars that we're having. On top is Palestine, which just to see and implications on the climate change that it will have an indirect way. Almost now we have more than one Hiroshima bomb that is bombed now on Gaza. Just look at the implications that it has on the irrigation, on the water resources, on the air that is being now in the region and in Gaza in particular, and look at the indirect impacts that we're having because of this weaponization, the militarization, and wars that are going unnoticed in terms of when we talk about the climate change. There is the direct and the indirect ways of impacting climate, and this is what we need to have in the negotiations. We need to have it at the table in terms of thematics that are contextualized, gender-sensitive approach, and youth-sensitive approach, as Snigdha was also mentioning, and our colleague also Alma. We have lots of things to take into account when we talk about negotiations that goes beyond science to a human security approach. When we talk about weapons and we talk about warplanes, it means we're talking about the usage of fossil fuels, right? We're talking about the impacts that it has on the climate, right? but everything is gone unnoticed just within the objective and the perspective of science. So what I would like us to do, I'm going to be at the COP for the whole 2 weeks. Some colleagues will be in week 1, some will be in week 2, but what I would like us to be all hand in hand, whether we are at the COP or not, to be able to accumulate the work that we are doing in different themes, daily themes, accumulated in terms of action points to be sent to the negotiations. And we need to have them accountable in terms of the processes, how inclusive they are of the things that the earth is passing through, and we as individuals. We have the direct impact of climate. In the work that I do in terms of the women, peace and security agenda, and in terms of the climate, you see women from Iraq, from different parts of the world, wanting to know about climate because they know it's impacting them with the drought that they have. We need to discuss this. The drought is not only an impact of a climate thing, it's a man-made thing. It's a conflict-related thing. When we have conflict, it means we have the lack of state apparatuses, and this is where also all the environmental constraints and obligations that the state has to do with gets just collapsed. So we have a mission to reframe the narratives, how we're able to put it and contextualize it, and put each item, and especially with the loss and damage, stop spending the money on weaponization and sending wars instruments to areas, and let's put the money in this loss and damage in terms of real impact to these states in the south, and especially those states that will not have their oil or whatever because they want to have the commitment in terms of loss and damage. Last point that I want to say, we together in terms of the climate community, we have an obligation and a necessity and a duty to humans and to earth, to water, to the soil, to the earth that we are breathing. And we have also a responsibility to the children that are being killed on a daily basis now in Palestine and Gaza, and the implications of weapons that is happening on their lives now and in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ring, for that session. And I want to say a big thank you to everyone, for the panelists, for the information that you have shared. We also have the Q&A. We have been able to answer most of the questions over there. So, but one of the things that I would really like to focus and say as Global Greens, you have seen the delegates that we are sending, all from different federations. On the chat, those who don't know what Global Greens is, you can be able to go to our website and see what Global Greens is. We are also going to be we also have a fundraising for the delegates. They're all self-funded, but we hope we can just get some money so that we can also support the delegates. And also on the Q&A, we had a question about the various themes and statements that we are doing. I would like to tell everyone as Global Greens, the working group has really been working throughout the year and doing different things. We have had different webinars. We also have another webinar coming up. And we have also been able to we are looking forward to releasing statements as Global Greens, which we'll be having on conflict of interest. We are also having one on phase out fossil fuels. We also have on biodiversity and protecting nature. And we have the IPCC report, and also we are going to be having the Global Gains demand. And for those who also will be at COP, we are going to be having a side event on the 3rd. You can look on our website and see what time that will be happening. We'll also have a booth the first week at COP, so you can engage and also invite your friends, those who will be there, to engage with us, and we can talk to them and tell them more about our work from the different parts of the world that we come from. You can see we are diverse, coming from different places. We have politicians, scientists, all in our delegation. So See, time is over. So like I said, thank you so much for being our guests. I believe together we can save and make our world a better place for us at present and also for the future generation. And kindly keep checking on our websites. Also, we'll be keeping updating you on what is happening. That is on the website. We'll have our Facebook, we have our Instagram. Kindly follow us and we'll keep you updated. Thank you so much and have a nice afternoon, evening. Bye-bye, everyone.